Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Hashtag Brand Bosses podcast. We are honored to have Lauren on our podcast today. Lauren is a Las Vegas-based entrepreneur and content creator who transformed a simple creative outlet into a full-time career. In 2020, she launched Whip It in Vegas. That's her Instagram name. What started out as a passion project quickly evolved into a thriving brand, allowing her to collaborate with major companies such as Hilton, IHG, and Marriott, while also using her platform to support nonprofits and to amplify local and minority-owned businesses. Now, through her work and platform, she hopes to inspire other women to chase their dreams no matter how unconventional and embrace the possibilities that come with following their purpose. Lauren shares her journey with her about 10K Instagram followers today. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jamie. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes. So let's go back to the beginning. I love how you say you want to inspire females to chase their dreams no matter how unconventional. Where did this start for you, this whole journey?
It's a crazy story, but essentially I had started an Instagram account for my dog way back in the summer of 2020. He was my first ever puppy, Remy. You'll still see him on my page today. And I just started posting because, to be quite honest, everyone in my life was a little bit sick of me sending them nonstop puppy pics. I decided, let's put it all on Instagram, and if you want to see it, you can see it when you log on. And it kind of took off from there. I started building a little community and eventually got noticed for a brand launch party and realized the potential of this, thus turning it into what it is today.
Yeah, I love that. And so you started sharing some of these photos. And when did you start your page? Do you remember?
I want to say it was early June 2020.
Okay, so that's pretty recent.
Yeah, coming up on 5 years soon.
Okay, wow. I guess that is 5 years. It feels like just a couple of years ago, I guess.
I know,
COVID
gosh, it really does feel like just yesterday.
Yeah, that's so funny. And so remind me, are you in college? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm starting on a degree in accounting, so I'm really excited to get deeper into that and see where it takes me.
Yeah, and so how old were you, I guess, when you started this page?
I want to say I was maybe 14, and Remy
Wow.
was my first puppy, so I was just kind of getting used to social media and growing into that, and then it turned into this.
Wow, that's so crazy. 14. That's so
Yeah,
awesome.
almost 5 years later, and it's turned into kind of a thriving business and a passion of mine.
Yeah, and so at what point did you kind of look at your social and you're like, okay, I could actually make a business out of this?
It was actually a really interesting story that kind of led me to that realization. I had been invited to a brand launch party on the Vegas Strip. A local media agency in Las Vegas reached out to me with an email and invited me to this little pet boutique launch. And I was like shocked that they had even found me, to be totally honest. But it was such an amazing experience, and I'm so glad that I attended because I met so many amazing creatives and people in the marketing industry. And I kind of realized, wait, I could be doing brand partnerships. I could be taking on deals and negotiating for things and turning this into a business. So that's kind
Yeah.
of where it all started.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that kind of experience maybe opened up, I guess, the scope that you had for the ability to take this maybe to the next level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And how has that journey been for you? I mean, launching this, I guess, kind of as a business, and then, juggling probably school as well as trying to grow, I guess, the brand partnership side. How has that been for you?
There have certainly been lots of ups and downs.
Yeah.
There were times where I felt discouraged, certainly along the way. And I think a lot of other entrepreneurs can relate to that for sure. But ultimately, I'm so glad that my life's kind of taken me on this journey, even though it was not at all what I expected. And it's definitely been a huge factor in shaping who I am today. And it kind of leads me into the topic of having an unconventional niche and how that can really take you in some unexpected directions.
Mm-hmm.
I started out as just kind of a general pet account and had no real direction. And then as I branched into brand deals, I eventually landed a travel deal and then realized, wait, here's another level that I can take it to, and here's even greater potential that it might have. And so I started to work into the pet travel niche, which is even smaller, as you can imagine, I'm sure. So yeah, it was definitely quite the journey.
Yeah. And so with that niche, obviously that takes some trial and error, like understanding where you fit maybe on the online landscape. But it sounds like you kind of have had that defined. And so, what have been some of your favorite, I guess, partnerships or brands that you've worked with?
Honestly, too many to count. I'm sitting at a little over 200 partnerships now so far, all
Wow.
time. But there have been so many really wonderful ones that have just really opened my eyes to what this can be and how far I can take this. For example, Auto Camp in Yosemite. It was my first time visiting a national park, and it
Wow.
was an amazing experience overall. I garnered almost 70,000 views for the brand through my content that time and had an amazing experience staying in this really unique little hotel concept. They have renovated Airstreams, the little vintage trailers. You probably know what I
Oh,
mean.
sure.
Um, and they've turned them into little hotel suites, and it was such a wonderful experience. And of course, there have been many others like that, like my first time working with Marriott or my first time working with an Intercontinental. So many great little stories in there.
How have you like landed some of these partnerships? Like, what does that look like in terms of a reach out?
That's a great question. So I typically send email pitches. I kind of do some market research on where I might like to go and what hotels in the area are pet friendly, and then kind of see what holes in their marketing scheme that I can kind of fill. And so I
Hmm.
usually send a very tailored email pitch introducing myself and my work and showing them, kind of giving them a little bit of an idea, painting this picture of how I can help them grow their audience and
Hmm.
bring in a new kind of clientele, people who are traveling with their pets and who really value them as a part of their family almost, right? That's definitely something we're seeing a lot more with younger people, I think. And so I think it's important that hotels tap into this market. And I've been showing them essentially ways to do that and how we can work together to do so. And then I usually send over my pitch deck, my portfolio with all of the other amazing partnerships I've done over the years. And it's just a great way to kind of put it all out there on the front end and see how we could possibly work together. And then from there, it's negotiations.
Interesting. I think that's a great, I guess, approach, even as we've tried to get guests on the podcast. Like we do something similar, which is, you're kind of presenting yourself, your brand, but then also verbalizing, like, here's the value impact that we can bring. And I think doing so, I feel like that makes a lot of sense. And so, like you said, this seems to be kind of a growing interest, maybe among younger people who are traveling with their pets. Would you say your audience is made up mainly of that?
Absolutely. So, looking at my own demographics, it's mostly people 40 and younger. And it's mostly women that I'm seeing follow me and kind of tap into the same journey of traveling with their pets and giving their
Hmm.
dogs the best lives they can, possibly. So, yeah, it's definitely a younger person thing, I think, as pets become increasingly bigger in people's lives.
Yeah, that's so interesting. When you create content for these brands, do you typically like pitch, okay, here's kind of my idea for the reel or the post, or are they kind of bringing it to you saying, okay, we've seen this kind of content be really successful, do something similar. What does that look like?
Usually it's both. I
Hmm.
love having discussions with whoever leads their marketing team to kind of see how we can work together in a way that really showcases both of our best qualities, what I can do, and certainly what an amazing property they have also. But typically, I come up with an idea for it to pitch just to start so that they can kind of get a feel for what I might be able to do for them. And then from there,
Yeah.
we can kind of tailor it and adjust our approach.
That's awesome. I'm just looking at your page right now, and it's so fun to look at. We've never had any kind of influencer like you in this niche before on the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, do you aim for a certain amount of posts per week or per month or anything like that?
That's a great question. I think consistency really is key, especially when
Hmm.
you're building a social media platform in an unconventional niche like mine. I have typically in the past tried to post 5 to 7 times a week, but lately, as I've taken on other responsibilities and started to do more UGC work behind the scenes for paid campaigns, I've taken it down more to like 2 to 5 times a week.
Okay, so you're
Mhm.
picking up some UGC stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I do a lot on the back end as well that nobody ever really sees on socials.
Oh, interesting. Is that a whole nother like arm to your business, or is that pretty just organic with whatever comes in the door?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole other section. Besides what you see me post on social media, I'm also typically working on a couple of UGC campaigns on the back. You'll often see me on a brand's website or on a brand's social media. and I'll be showcasing a product or kind of working my way into their content organically to help them with their marketing.
Wow, that's really cool. Is that something, did something prompt you to do UGC? Like, was that something that you saw maybe online and you're like, I want to take a stab at this? Or how did that come to be?
It's actually a very similar story to how I got into brand partnerships altogether.
Mm-hmm.
I had a brand reach out to me with an offer to do just a UGC campaign and film some content, edit it for them, and then allow them to post it and give them usage rights, of course. And I realized, wait, this is another thing that I could be doing and another way that I could be using my time to maximize my business's profit and reach in a different way.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. UGC, that's something that I've had a couple, just even of like my interns or people on my team express interest in. And that's something I don't really have a lot of experience within. So I'm curious, what would be your advice to someone who wants to get started with that?
Ooh, that's a really good one. Honestly, I would say if you have at least 1,000 followers on any social media platform, although you don't really need followers to start UGC, it does help to be able to qualify to get onto platforms like Aspire, where you can find UGC offers and connect with brands who are already seeking creators. But I also think it's really important that new UGC creators know their worth and negotiate their contracts. I think a lot of brands out there ask for definitely a lot, especially in the usage rights department, permanent, irrevocable, in any format. That's definitely a thing. And they are often offering lower end prices without quite disclosing the budget that they have for the project. So I recently just negotiated a deal from $150 to $550 for one video. I just wrapped it up this weekend. And it's really about knowing what you're worth and what it takes for you to see value in the deal.
Wow. I have to say you're very mature.
Oh, thank you.
What I would imagine. How old are you?
18 almost.
Okay. So you're very mature for age 18, which is awesome. I remember growing up and that was a compliment that I would get sometimes as well. And so that's so interesting to me. Like what do your parents do, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so my mom was in real estate before she retired, and my dad's in law.
Okay, interesting. So maybe that's where some of that negotiation comes in, is that right?
I'm sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so you would negotiate this deal. I just want to hone in on this for a second. From 150 to over $500. How did walk me through how that came to be?
Absolutely. So I received the offer to do the campaign, kind of reviewed the contract, reviewed the brief, and I felt that they were asking for quite a lot of deliverables, a lot of do's, a lot of don'ts, and certainly usage rights, right? We just talked about that and how a lot of creators undervalue themselves in that department specifically. So I sort of followed up and I said, hey, this is not exactly in line with my budget for this kind of campaign, my rate for this sort of work, based upon not only the things that I would have to produce for you, the fully edited video, but also all of the raws, the B-roll, the usage rights, and also the potential for reshoots. If they don't like something or I need to change something, certainly I'll have to go back and redo my work, which does eat into your time and your budget, right? So I sent an email back and I said the following and requested that. And they said, certainly, how about this number? And I countered at $550 and they accepted. So it was a rush deadline. So I felt that it was kind of a fair rate. And yeah.
Wow, good for you.
Absolutely. It was a great project. I had a fun time working with it.
And so thinking about that experience kind of on this thread of knowing your worth, how did you come to understand that for yourself?
That's actually a great question. I think it's a journey that we are all permanently kind of on. I don't think that there's really an end to that. I think that we're all kind of continuously discovering our self-worth every day over and over again. But my best advice in that is to stop letting your potential go to waste because you don't feel ready for it. If the opportunity is being presented to you, you are certainly ready for it. You have what it takes within you to make it happen. And whatever's out there looking for you, you should be looking for it also. It's definitely about showing yourself that you can by taking on difficult projects, certainly, and knowing that, okay, I've done this before, I can do it again. And I'm able to do hard things. I'm capable of it. And so I think it's really about knowing that you can and that you have it within yourself to kind of discover that worth and continue on with your journey as an entrepreneur.
I think that was really beautifully said.
Thank you.
Would you say your family or maybe even your friends share this kind of thought with you?
I would hope so. I mean, I think it's a really important thing to kind of know, especially as a younger person, that, you know, you have intrinsic value even when you feel that you don't, and that you'll always have that potential, and to waste it is just not conducive to reaching your goals, of course. So I would hope so, but I think it's something that everyone kind of has to discover on their own.
Yeah. And I want to go back to your bio, where you said, let's see, through your work and platform, you hope to inspire other women to chase their dreams, no matter how unconventional. So talk to me a little bit about this. Like, where does this spring from?
Absolutely. You know, I think that having an unconventional niche is something that is really underrated when it comes to being in the social media space, or even just an entrepreneur in general. I think a lot of people believe that they will find success in a more mainstream niche like fashion or science or literature or something in that vein. You know, there's a lot of creators in a lot of those veins, certainly. And they do find success, but I will say that niching down and finding something hyper specific to you that you're really passionate about can make all the difference. Having a purpose that's tied to what you do and the content you create, I think can be really make the difference between success and failure.
And thinking about yourself and your own purpose, how would you define that at this point?
At this point, honestly, it's just kind of been about seeing what I'm capable of and where I can take this and how far I can go with it. This is nothing I expected to be doing, certainly. So it's been a wonderful way to kind of explore my potential and see what the world has to offer me. And on top of that, I've had such an amazing time giving my dogs such a great life. Certainly traveling with them is not something that everybody can do. And I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to work with amazing brands and take my dogs places and let them watch the hot air balloons in the desert or see the Golden Gate Bridge at sunrise. That's definitely not something that a lot of people can say they've experienced with their dogs, especially if you're a dog person like I am and you hold them so close to your heart. I'm sure a lot of people do. That's definitely, I think, where my purpose stems from.
Yeah. No, I think that was well said as well. So I would have to imagine that doing UGC, doing some of these partnerships, you have to be pretty resourceful in terms of even finding the contact of someone to reach out to, in terms of just follow up. You have to be diligent. Does that kind of align with what you've experienced thus far?
Absolutely. I think following up is one of the best things that you can do if you're a creator pitching brands. A lot of the time, your first email will get lost in the shuffle and kind of fall into maybe even a spam inbox at times. So following up is hugely important in my opinion. And then aside from that, I think having a kind of a warm call almost to avoid like that whole cold calling awkwardness, like, hi, I got your email off the website, sorry, you know. I think it's so much better to kind of send like a DM to their general social media team. That's very easily answered usually, and then you can kind of ask for their media contact details, and then from there say, hi, so and so referred me to talk about XYZ.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. Kind of going through the different, I guess, contact platforms, trying to get through to a brand. I think that's definitely a good way to do it. And so I know a lot of influencers and creators typically have or I shouldn't say typically, sometimes they have an agency that they work with that kind of feeds them some of these partnerships. Are you a part of that, or do you solely run solo?
So for now, I'm doing this all solo. This is all me at the moment, which has been difficult at times, but incredibly rewarding. And although I do see why a lot of creators go with an agency, take that route, and I see the value in that, certainly, I think that it's honestly so much better to, at least personally for me, to experience it firsthand yourself and be able to negotiate on your own behalf and say, this is what I'm willing to put up with, this is what I'm willing to take on for now, and this is what I feel I deserve as compensation for that. And also to kind of just show yourself that you're competent and capable and that you're able to land these deals and network with these people. It's truly invaluable.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. And I think that's probably inspiring for someone who maybe is considering potentially working with an agency. I like how you kind of say, at least try it yourself and at least give yourself that possibility to potentially enjoy, I guess, being your own brand manager per se. I think that's a really good piece of advice.
Absolutely. And I really do think that it helps you understand the inner workings of a brand deal and a contract and a negotiation even better. And eventually, if you do decide to turn to an agency for help as your platform grows, I think that's great and it can be really useful. But I think it's really important to kind of dip your toe in the water and get a feel for it first.
Yeah, I think that was well said. What have been some unexpected challenges that you've faced being in this kind of influencer sphere?
There have been many, honestly, but I think number one, it has been rejection from brands throughout the years, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that if you're a small creator like myself. But there were times where I would send hundreds of emails for a specific location to pitch, and every single email was a no. And that was really difficult. And persevering and staying persistent and continuing to follow up and continuing to send emails and continuing to build my portfolio was really, really helpful.
Yeah. And how many followers did you have, do you recall, when you first maybe landed your brand partnership or a brand partnership?
I think my first brand partnership came along when I was at maybe 4,000 to 5,000 followers. So
Okay.
a little bit later than some people, I think. But it was an accident after all. So
Yeah. Has it been, would you say, have you only done organic growth or have you done some paid?
I've done mostly organic growth. Just about all of my work on my platform is made by me, and I've never paid for followers or engagement or paid for a feature. Anytime that I get a speaking opportunity or an article opportunity, that comes kind of organically to me in my inbox. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good for you.
Thank you.
I'm curious because I don't really have a scope into the world of these contracts and working with brands. What are some things that you have maybe outlined in your contracts or in your deals that maybe the average person just wouldn't know about?
Absolutely. So I think, especially in the hotel/travel niche that I'm in, a really unique one is including a clause for something like a natural disaster, like a fire or something. My Yosemite deal back in August with AutoCamp, I had to kind of negotiate to include that in the contract. And there was some back and forth with their legal department trying to do so. But it was really important to me that my content come out good for them because, to film content there, if the skies were smoky and Yosemite was shut down, would do no good for either of us. I mean,
Right.
it wouldn't be an enjoyable trip. I wouldn't get good content. They wouldn't get true value out of this partnership. So something like that I think is really important to include. And then I also think, back to usage rights once again, I think negotiating usage rights is really, really important.
Yeah. So what is kind of your baseline in terms of usage rights?
So for usage rights, it really depends on the deal and what I'm getting out of it. So for a paid deal, I might offer unlimited for a year of use, meaning they can use it on their website, on their socials, in any other capacity. And that includes, my name, my likeness, the video, the image, all of that. And then after that, if they want to renew it, they can come talk to me and we can renegotiate and say, okay, if you want to use this for another 6 months, let's discuss a fair rate for that. But if I'm doing something like a hotel deal, it honestly depends on the location. If it's a brand I've worked with before, if it's a brand I haven't worked with before but would love to, all of that really plays in and is a factor in that decision.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you typically negotiate like for a one-time post and then you potentially renegotiate for more content with them or if they want to repost it. Is that right?
Yeah, and then also, of course, if they wish to use it on their own. So if they use my materials that I've created for the brand, let's say a reel or a post or even just pictures, and if they want to add that to their website after it's been a year or add that to their socials after it's been 6 months, maybe we're out of our usage rights period, and then at that point they would have to talk to me and say, hey, we'd like to continue using this piece of material. How can we do that?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Good for you. So you're setting up quite a few, I guess, boundaries when it comes to these partnerships.
Absolutely. And I think boundaries are one of the most important things that you can have just for yourself and your own peace as a content creator, especially if you're doing it as a job like I am. Because oftentimes there are brands that will push for the most, and certainly, that's their job to do so for the company. They want to get as much as they can out of that marketing budget. But I think it's really important that you kind of protect your own peace and the quality of your work too. I mean, nothing good is ever rushed or done from a frustrated spirit, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to put it. What's kind of your turnaround time typically? So say you go and you do a shoot with a hotel. How quick do you typically negotiate to send them the content?
So that usually depends. I typically aim to do it within 7 to 14 days tops, and that includes the raw assets, everything we've negotiated on, handled, finalized, any revisions done by then. So to be completely done, usually between 7 and 14 days. But I will say that depends on if I have a second location lined up right after. Oftentimes I will go from one city straight to the next and not have a break to come back home. Oftentimes I'll be in a city for more than 10 days and I won't be able to get everything handled while I'm working with other hotels. Like my recent San Francisco deal back in November. I want to say I booked campaigns with 5 or 6 hotels. Wow. And I had to create assets and keep track of it all for all of those different brands and have it out in a timely manner. And of course, there's also, exclusivity periods. So maybe I would have to wait for 2 to 3 days before posting about a different one. So that all gets factored in. But typically, I aim to have everything done before the 14-day mark.
Interesting. That's really interesting. How do you deal with like competitors? So say you want to work with one brand versus another and maybe they butt heads or are in the same industry. Do you run into a lot of challenges with that or not so much?
Not too often, though I will say there have been some issues where brands aren't super stoked to have their promotional content, published right after promotional content of a competitor or in succession with. So that's definitely difficult at times, but it's all about contract negotiations and exclusivity periods and all of that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So looking ahead to the new year in 2025, do you have a couple of partnerships or brands that you're excited to work with?
I do. I have a couple of contracts on the table that I've been negotiating and a few travel deals lined up. I'm very, very excited for all of them. Some of them I've even worked with before in the past, and we're kind of going back for a round 2, which I'm very excited about. And a lot of UGC on the calendar. So yeah, staying busy for sure.
Yeah. And I'm just curious. So you're doing this, you're balancing, I take it, some college credits. What is your day to day? How do you balance all of this?
Honestly, I would say that the biggest recommendation I have is staying organized, keeping all of your brand deadlines together in a notebook or a Google Calendar or something like that so that you can make sure that you're on track and hitting your deadlines when you need to be while also balancing a workload, a course load, etc. I think that's really important.
Wow. Do you think being young and being a creator has been definitely like a benefit to you, or do you feel like sometimes you're met with a different perspective?
Absolutely. I think despite the adversity that there has been along the way, I think that this has been hugely important to me on my journey. It's definitely shown me that I'm capable of so much more than I thought I would be, and that I have a purpose and a calling, and it's been truly a great journey. I'm very proud of the different brands I've worked with and the milestones I've hit, and I think that that's a great thing to happen when you're young. It does wonders for your self-confidence, especially as an entrepreneur and going into the workforce eventually. So yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I feel very inspired just seeing you. I mean, you're 18, you're negotiating these brand deals, you're creating a name for yourself online. Like, that is not easy to do, especially while potentially juggling other things, right? Personal, school, all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So I think that's really, my hat's off to you for sure for doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so I guess as we wrap up the podcast, what is a piece of advice you would give to someone who is looking to take their social to the next level? What's a piece of advice you would give?
Honestly, consistency, but beyond that, having passion that shines through your work. If you are extremely passionate about what you do and you have a purpose, it is undeniable that people are going to come to you and see this passion and this light within you and say, I would love that. I want that to come up on my For You page every day, and I want to be a part of that. And I want to be a part of this community. I think that is really important.
Yeah. Well, Lauren, it's been such a joy to have you on the podcast. I know that a lot of people listening to this will be really inspired by you, and I think you just brought up some really great points, and I appreciate you going in depth with some of these questions that I've been throwing your way. Not everybody is able to be as open and vulnerable as you, and so I really appreciate you bringing that approach to the podcast.
Of course. Yeah. No, thank you so much for hosting me. I've had such a great time kind of going in depth on this and explaining this.
Okay, and where can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at whippit_in_Vegas, or you can send me an email, whippit.in.vegas@gmail.com, if you'd like to connect further.
All right, well, it's been a pleasure, and thank you to everybody who's been listening. Season 5 is going to launch pretty soon, so be sure to stay tuned for more episodes of the Brand Bosses podcast.